Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to wait a minute or less than a minute for everyone to join us. I can see folks joining the Zoom room. Okay, get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Leila Golestana Austin, and along with my colleague Alison Horowski, I'm co-executive director of Women's Learning Partnership. I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone for joining us for today's event, which is co-hosted with Women Living Under Muslim Laws, whose executive board member, Mona Tajalli, is a panelist in our event, and you will hear from her very soon. Our two organizations have a history of working together, and we are very excited to relaunch our collaboration with a youth-inspired and led movement support project focused on building cross-border coalitions for gender justice in Afghanistan and Iran. A quick background on our organizations, and you can find links to our organizational websites in the chat. Women's Learning Partnership is a partnership of 20 women's rights organizations across the Global South, working to leverage the collective power of connected feminist leaders and organizations to build and sustain gender justice movements. Our partnership was born out of Beijing, and for 25 years, we have been doing this work through co-created and contextually adapted learning resources and advocacy campaigns to ensure maximum impact for local activists while advancing gender justice globally. As WLP celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, VLUM, or Women Living Under Muslim Laws, is celebrating its 40th. And over these past 4 decades, it has been fostering a rich feminist solidarity network across the Muslim majority world, covering impactful women's rights advocacy and training through its recently relaunched Transformative Feminist Leadership Institute, which offers tailored trainings to nourish the next generation of feminist activists in their local contexts. You will hear more about our developing project and what inspired it during the panel discussion today, but to quickly put it in context, there are ongoing discussions during the CSW69 deliberations on the simultaneous weakening of democratic institutions and alarming backlash on gender equality across the globe, which is hampering implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action. At the same time, we are seeing the most daring feminist movements for justice, equality, and freedom forming in the most gender-repressed, closed autocracies like Iran and Afghanistan. Given the severely restricted civic spaces in which these young feminists are demanding more rights for women, civil liberties, and inclusive democracy, and with acute risks to their personal safety, the pilot phase of our project is focused on building resilient cross-border movements and campaigns in support of the courageous young changemakers in Iran and Afghanistan. Our goal is to work with youth activists living in country and in the diaspora, creating important spaces for exchange, support, and mentorship on sustained gender egalitarian movement building. Without further ado, I am going to give a very brief introduction of our panelists for today's event. You have their full bios in your invitation, and we will be putting that in the chat as well. Dr. Mona Tajalli is executive board member of Women Living Under Muslim Laws, or VLUM. She's a scholar of gender and politics, specializing in women's political participation and representation in Muslim countries with a comparative focus on Iran, Afghanistan, and Turkey. She has researched and trained women across the region on strategies for political empowerment and transformative leadership. Her open access books include Women's Political Representation in Iran and Turkey, Demanding a Seat at the Table, and Electoral Politics, Making Quotas Work for Women, co-authored with Homo Hudfa. Bahar Kandahari is an Iranian-born human rights defender and director of communications at Center for Human Rights in Iran. She also serves as a junior policy fellow at the Atlantic Council's Strategic Litigation Project, working on End the Gender Apartheid campaign. Bahar is the founder of the youth-led organization Middle East Matters, which focuses on media journalism and digital human rights campaigns. She's also an advisor for our project. Zarga Yaftali is director of Women and Children, a legal research foundation, which focuses on promoting and supporting civil society efforts to include women in decision-making at a national level in Afghanistan. She's also an executive board member of Women Living Under Muslim Laws and Women's Regional Network, as well as co-chair of the Women, Peace and Security Working Group and the Child Protection Action Network. She's won several awards for her women's rights advocacy. Last but not least, we are excited to have Sahar and Manija join us from Afghanistan. They are both recent participants in the Transformative Feminist Leadership Institute's leadership trainings. Sahar Nikzad is a 12th grade student at Freedom Online School and is committed to peace building, women's human rights, and fighting gender apartheid. As part of her participation in the Institute, Sahar co-founded the Alpha Seekers Network, providing free online classes and research training to other young Afghan women. Manija Nemati is a graduate of Kabul University, and despite interruptions in her studies, she continues to work on women's rights and gender equality while seeking to address the challenges that limit women's social empowerment by building bridges cross-nationally to achieve social justice in Afghanistan. We can't wait to hear from our amazing panelists. I will be doing 2 rounds of questions before opening to question and answer session. Please feel free to submit any questions that come to mind throughout the discussion in the Q&A portal at the bottom of the screen, and we will get to them a little later. Okay, I'm going to start with Mona. Mona Jan, transnational feminist collaboration for women's rights and gender equality as at the core of Volum's mission and vision. One of the most recent initiatives that Volum supported is bringing together key feminists to form the Feminist Collective for Woman Life Freedom to draft the Iran Women's Bill of Rights and create a public discourse and engage others around various rights it foresees for the next Iranian constitution. Can you describe the significance of such a network and how it helps to advance gender justice and equality?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, dear Layla, dear Allison, and everyone else. Ooh, I hope that my image is okay. 1 second.
We can see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay. Fantastic. Yes, I just wanted to welcome everyone and as well thank everyone with regards to supporting this event, as well as all that we've been doing for the past easily several months, if not generations. So very quickly, I'm just going to share a little bit of my slides with regards to the 5 minutes that I have to be able to answer your question. Okay, so yes, thankfully we are, it's great that Women Living Under Muslim Laws as well as Women's Learning Partnership have joined forces together in order to discuss ways to combat backlash and rolling back of the women's rights, as well as the anti-gender ideology that we're seeing, which unfortunately is not only taking shape and taking hold in across the Muslim world, but also here in our own backyards, as well as here in the United States. So I think this is certainly the time for being very consciously building transnational solidarity networks, building cross-border sort of coalitions in order to support and uplift one another. And indeed, as you also mentioned, both organizations, Women Living Under Muslim Laws and Women's Learning Partnership, have been around for many years. WLP is celebrating 25 years. Volum just celebrated its 40th year. It's now entering its 41st year. And so this history is not only important, but it also remains relevant at a time when we do know that the lessons learned from the previous generations are really important, because as we know, history tends to repeat itself, though it's differently, but it does tend to repeat itself. And I think we need to learn from one another. So with regards to women living under Muslim laws, this is just a snapshot of the website, which talks about our history. For over 40 years, WILUM has served as a platform to bring women together across different contexts and realities, recognizing the power of exchange of knowledge and experiences. In these days, in those early days, WILUM actually came into being from a number of very, radical women, I could say, academics particularly, among them my own mentor, Homa Hudfar, as well as Maria Mihal Lucas and many others. They recognize that the backlash that they were witnessing against women's rights, particularly the backlash in the name of Islam, where Islamic fundamentalism was on the rise in the late 1970s and early 1980s, they realized that it wasn't just restricted to one country or one context, but in fact, it was unfolding in countries like Iran and Pakistan and Egypt. And they also recognized that it's looking very similar to one another, where gender and women's rights are very much at the forefront of being rolled back. So the founders of Women Living Under Muslim Laws, they decided to create a network on their own in order to not only facilitate exchange of experiences between various women's groups, but also to be able to sort of create sort of what we call a research think tank to be able to discuss some of this work. So I think it's really important where we discuss what is transnational feminist solidarity. This is just a selection of some of the publications that WILUM has produced over the past decades, particularly in recent years. It's really to facilitate that exchange of knowledge and experiences across borders, from the local to the global, as well as vice versa. And I think one of the advantages of being an autonomous women's rights organization is that you can not only learn from sort of the opportunities that exist at the international level, such as the international human rights documents, and right now we are celebrating CSW and 30 years since the Beijing Platform for Action, but also to bring that to the local level and vice versa, recognizing what does the local level need to then bring it to the international community. So I think that transnational solidarity is really significant. Throughout the past years, WILUM has produced a lot of research, what we call research-based activism on gender-based violence, family law reforms, women's political participation representation, which is actually how I became involved in WILUM, producing electoral politics, making quotas work for women alongside Homa Hudfar, as well as more recently constitutionalizing women's rights. So with regards to your question specifically on what does this look like today, or what is it today? So WILUM actually provided, having had a rich network of women's rights activists across the region, particularly in Iran, when the Women Life Freedom protests erupted in September of 2022, we really saw this as an opportunity to translate this very progressive liberatory slogan of women, life, freedom into action. And the way we did this is that we just provided, or WILUM just provided the support or the platform for women's rights activists, for academics, for scholars to come together in order to exchange their knowledge and just build on the decades of work that they themselves had done. Indeed, Iran has had discussions among the feminist movement on women's rights, on a charter of women's rights back in 2007, 2006, 2008, 2009. So just building on that work. So this is where, with some support from WILUM, we created the Feminist Collective for Women, Life, Freedom, or Hamboud Feministi برای ژنجیان آزادی. And the purpose of this was to arrive at what we call the wish list, in the sense that while we know the context of Iran, we do know the historical gender apartheid that has taken place, ever since 1979, but also we know what we want, in the sense that we want absolute gender equality. For instance, women's absolute equality in access to in access to education and employment and reproductive rights and right to travel without the need of permission to acquire a passport and so on and so forth? Or what do we want our future constitution to look like? And this is where we arrived at sort of the Iran Women Bill of Rights, which is a living document outlining gender egalitarian demands for the future constitution of Iran. It's written for the context of Iran while it's echoing a lot of the sort of international human rights documents. So I think that it's really that good example of going between the local to the global. And as a living document, it has undergone many different iterations. We have a core group that is still receiving feedback from Iranians, across the globe. So right now, the first iteration was published in March 8th of 2023, so just a few months after the eruption of the protest. Recently, we are publishing our sixth draft, or our sixth iteration, after receiving so much feedback. So this is just one example of what does it mean to sort of build this transnational solidarity, while at the same time recognizing that we need to come together and demand our rights in a very clear way, rather than relying on our male political elites. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mona. And this effort has been very important for the Iranian community. Thank you. I'm going to go to Bahar now. Baharjan, the gender justice movements in the Middle East, like the Woman Life Freedom movement in Iran, are primarily led by Generation Z women like yourself. What does Gen Z want? And how are they spearheading what is being referred to as a cultural paradigm shift that's changing patriarchal attitudes in Iran and elsewhere in the Middle East?
Thank you so much, Leila Jan. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you all. And I'll just jump right into it. I am also a Gen Z, but I want to say before answering the question that we are not a monolith generation. So I won't be able to tell you what Gen Z wants as an entire generation, but I can give you an idea. I think we come from all sides of the spectrum, political spectrum, but I think what really makes Generation Z very different is our ability to work together and build coalitions. So despite our differences, we're able to work together. But what the young generation in Iran wants is basically what young people everywhere and every human being wants: freedom and the peace of mind to just have a normal life. And the last time I went to Iran, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was very surprised by the level of depression in the young group like myself. And I remember this conversation very well when he was telling me that he's so ashamed of being a young person in Iran, not because of the Iranian identity, but because there is absolutely no way for him to have a future in this country. So that is exactly what the Iranian youth want. They want to have a future. They want to be able to live in a country where they can go to school and they can plan their dreams without the limitations of the government. And but we are also a generation that is very much interconnected to the world. I think one thing that really makes us different from our parents and our grandparents in the past is that they were not able to see as much of the outside world as we are now because of social media and internet, and that's why we can compare ourselves to the young generation outside, living the same life that we could live if we were not living under an authoritarian government. And I think that's why Iranian youth are very much politically and socially more aware of the rights and the freedoms they're being deprived of. And that is why they're able to mobilize more. And it's really important to acknowledge that the Woman Life Freedom Movement was not just a woman-led movement, it was very much a youth-led, a student-led movement. And a lot of the reports that came out afterwards, we saw that the majority of the people who were detained, killed, they were people from Generation Z. They were young people, and a lot of the people who were executed were also very much in their 20s. And that's very important because the regime also acknowledges that these protests are being led by the youth. They passed a law in Congress immediately, in the parliament immediately after the protests, cracking down on students in universities who were organizing movements. They've also policed universities a lot more than before because they were at the forefront of the women life freedom movement. So I think that is why we need to give youth a lot more space than we are culturally and historically have done so. They deserve a seat at the table, at the decision-making table, at the conversations that we're having. And Iran's population is majority overwhelmingly very young. The majority of the people are under 30, I believe. And that is why it's really important to have their voice in any conversation in regards to where Iran is heading. And to answer your question about the boundaries that the Generation Z is pushing, and I think it also goes back to social media more and being able to see what are the different ways of lives that people are living outside. And that's why they're pushing so many different cultural boundaries. And we are seeing a lot of young Iranian singers recently being arrested and their social media being taken down. And you can see the fear that the government has of people using social media to spread their message of resistance and the defiance. They literally just banned all of the platforms, and I mean it's already banned in Iran to use Instagram and Facebook, but the cyber police is able to take down your content because it's so threatening to them to have young women singing on social media or showing their hair on social media, or youth just having fun on social media. It's having fun in a country like Iran is threatening, and showing your hair and singing like a normal person is very threatening. So I think that's why Generation Z has been able to push a lot of the boundaries, because they're able to connect to the outside world. They're able to send their message outside through social media in a country where press is limited. Journalists are not covering as much as they should be. They're not able to cover as much as they should. So that's why young people have taken it into their own hands to tell their stories on social media and become their own journalists, basically. But at the same time, the things that we see as defiance and resilience is just a way of life. It's just life for young people in Iran. Not everyone wants to be an activist. They don't want to be resisting and defying everything. They just want to be able to live. But in a country like Iran, walking on the street like a normal person and showing your hair, that's resistance. That's something powerful. But I think it takes a lot of psychological power to be able to live in a country where you're so limited as a young person, especially if you are a woman. And we are seeing the suicide rates among young people in Iran going up so much, and this is like directly correlated to the political and societal situation that Iran is in right now. I hope that answered your question. I don't want to go on for too long.
Thank you so much, Vajan. That answered and more. And thank you for shedding light on the importance of centering the youth perspective in our feminist activism. It's very important. Thank you. I'll come back to you later. I'm going to go to Zahrajan now. She's on. There she is. Hi, Zahrajan. One of the most significant characteristics of transnational feminist coalitions is their potential to connect local gender equality movements to global advocacy campaigns. You are currently involved in a robust advocacy campaign to end gender apartheid. Can you tell us about this campaign and the role of global advocacy in sustaining gender equality movements inside Afghanistan and Iran and through their diasporas?
Thank you so much, Laila John. Salam, Shama Hamagi Bakhair. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you from Women Leadership Partner for organizing this event and also their partnership with Ulum and conducting of different training regarding leadership for young generation in Afghanistan and Iran. I think it is a good opportunity for the young generation to know from each other and also to share their experience, their knowledge, because right now we need to have some kind of coordination and contribution between the young generation of Afghanistan and Iran. Thank you so much for all of your support. Regarding your question, as we all know that it is from decades that women of Afghanistan and also Iranian women, they started the campaign to end gender apartheid. They started the campaign to codify gender apartheid as a crime against humanity in Afghanistan. And it is good that during the past 3 years, we have a large number of Afghanistani and Iranian women that they are working together to codify gender apartheid as a crime against humanity. Regarding, as we all know, the procedures to codify gender apartheid as a crime against humanity, it is not it is not very easy, and it is a long way. There is a need for more advocacy, for more efforts that we all of us we should put together all of our efforts and advocacy, and then we can have some result regarding the codifying of gender apartheid. As it will be take maybe many years. It will be take maybe 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, or maybe 5 years. But it is a long way. But I am sure that we can go until we achieve our goal, which is codifying of gender apartheid. But inside of this. As we have long way for codification of gender apartheid as a crime against humanity, but there is need to do some advocacy at the regional level and also global level, because there is need to build different coalition, global coalition, regional coalition, to work together regarding their fight to codify gender apartheid. And inside of this, there is need for more work regarding awareness raising issue for people in Afghanistan and Iran regarding the gender apartheid, and putting pressure on those regimes that they are implementing gender apartheid in both countries, Afghanistan and Iran. So this is the work that right now we can do. And inside of this, it's very important to work with different member states, those member states that they are supporting the campaign, that they are accepting the term of gender apartheid. Right now, one of the main problems for all of us is the some of the countries, especially those countries that they are the first hand country in the world, they are not accepting, they are not agree with the term of gender apartheid. So this is why it is a long way, and there is need to work a lot. So about the campaign on codifying of gender apartheid, as I mentioned before, some Iranian and Afghanistani women, they started their campaign to codifying of gender apartheid from the kids. I am very happy that we have Monajan and Dr. Homa Utfar. They were one of the those women that they started their campaign, I think maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And right now we have a large number of women activists from Iran and Afghanistan that they are working, advocating in this campaign together. Right now, as you all know, that the Sixth Committee of UN, they had some kind of discussion, and they started this discussion from the many years ago. And it was good that in the April meeting that they had, at least they accepted that they agreed and they accepted that they are going to start discussion regarding the treaty on the crime against humanity. So once they start, and maybe in the coming months, they will start the discussion regarding the treaty on crimes against humanity. And inside of this, there are some other countries that they have some kind of solidarity and support with this campaign, and also with those activists that they are a part of this campaign, and they are working together to codify gender apartheid. Inside of this, there is lots of struggles and efforts from different organizations, international organization, national organization, and individuals that they are working and fighting against gender apartheid in both countries. But I hope that we can see result, at least regarding the acceptance of member states about the treaty humanity and crimes against humanity. Once we have the treaties, it will be a close step for codifying of gender apartheid. So as I mentioned, it's a long way, but there is need to have more patience to go in this long way and also to achieve the goal regarding the codifying of gender apartheid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarajan, and we thank you for your persistence in advocating for this important policy. And I know that even on this panel, I know Bahar also is working on this, so maybe we'll hear from her a little later about that as well. Okay, now we're going to go to one of our young Afghan students, Manija. I'm going to go to you first. Based on your experience participating in virtual educational settings, can you tell us in what ways the transformative leadership training and the space it created for Afghan and Iranian women enabled the exchange of experiences and ideas? Which training topics were most useful, and what would you like to see more of?
Greeting to all the participants in this session and to everyone working toward the creation of a feminist world. We are gender equality in the norm. I am from Takhal, Smelter in Afghanistan. I am delighted to have the opportunity today to share my experiences with the Transformational Feminist Leadership Institute training hosted by the Women Living and Other Muslim Laws Transnational Feminist Solidarity Network. That FLI training provided me with a unique and profound perspective on transformative leadership, gender equality, and women's empowerment insights. I learned that true leadership is not just about
Unfortunately, it looks like we have internet issues. Manija is outside of Kabul, so yeah. Mona, do you want to take over for her since you have her notes?
Yes, yes. And I think this showcases how challenging it was for us to connect, but nonetheless, we managed and we persevered. But yes, I think unfortunately, Zoom also as a webinar has a much larger bandwidth. Yes, so I will follow through from where Manija Jan left off. So the TFLI training provided me with a unique and profound perspective on transformative leadership, gender equality, and women's empowerment. Through both practical examples and theoretical insights, I learned that true leadership is not just about acquiring knowledge, but also about empowering others and passing on what we've learned. A leader is not only someone who can guide, but also someone who's open to learning through the process. The instructors themselves were great examples of this, and through our final project, we were encouraged to put these ideas into practice. The course was designed to emphasize the importance of transnational solidarity, which is critical, but it also helped bring us together from across Afghanistan, boosting national unity. It was empowering to talk with young women from Kabul, Herat, Badakhshan, and Mazar to think together and to break down our isolation. The training also provided an opportunity to build solidarity and cooperation between women from Afghanistan, Iran, and even Syria. We learned not only to sympathize with and relate to each other, but also to learn from both our successes as well as our failures. We were taught how to question the claims made by the Taliban regarding their policies, such as their assertions that their actions were aligned with Islamic principles or the rule of nature. We also learned that change begins with imagining alternative ways of living and thinking, then building solidarity, sharing our views, and taking steps, however small, towards our goals. It's about refusing to accept the injustices that are imposed upon us and taking action to change that. And then I think the other section is some of the key achievements of the course that she wants to outline. So listing some of the key achievements have been, first and foremost, building cross-border solidarity. So we built connections between women in Afghanistan and Iran, gaining practical experience through group research projects. And I should also note that some of our participants from Iran joined us physically from Turkey. So it was sort of also like contextually, it was between those three countries. The second key achievement was supportive mentorship. We received inspiration from mentors and guest speakers who played an influential role in our personal and collective growth. Third was hope for the future. The course gave us hope and strengthened our determination to fight gender apartheid and systemic gender discrimination. So leadership and transnational solidarity, the course encouraged us to believe in ourselves and our abilities, reminding us that we can be leaders and are capable of supporting our communities and making positive change. Let me give you an example of which I was personally involved in. On the first day of our training, we learned about the political developments in Syria, where several Islamist groups were gaining influence. Many of us expressed our concerns about the possibility of yet another Taliban-like government and what that would mean for Syrian women, as well as for the state of democracy in the region. We were encouraged to share our concerns with Syrian women, even though we did not know any of them. We learned about the concept of an open letter, and together we wrote 14 letters. A smaller group edited and consolidated them into one with the support of Wellum. We published it in the media, including the Syrian women's groups, as well as the UN Women online news resources. Through this initiative, we formed a women's solidarity network and have since worked to promote solidarity between women in Afghanistan, the region, and beyond. And we want to remain active and expand this network and connect with other solidarity networks, particularly those organized and run by young women. Some women from the course also went on to establish small research and action networks to support each other. Others have been put in touch with national and international organizations to continue their engagement. One of the most important aspects of this course was the presence of a kind and supportive instructors and speakers. Through their warm demeanor and real-life experiences, they encouraged us to believe in our abilities. In moments of doubt, they were to support and lead by example. And then she has outlined also her wish list. Do you want me to read that part too?
Sure, if it's quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay. So yes, my wish list and suggestions for future courses. So first, empowering women's leadership. We would like to see a series of long-term courses designed to build our leadership capacity. While short-term training courses are useful, the real impact comes from training that is delivered on a continuous long-term basis. Programs should build gradually, ensuring that skills are sustained and improved over time. These courses would act as platforms where women can apply their knowledge in real-world settings through research and practical projects. Second, connecting with global leaders. It's important for us to have more opportunities to interact with national and international leaders and the women in diaspora. Creating platforms for collaborations with organizations at the local, regional, and international levels would enhance our practical learning. Third, understanding the role of the UN in our lives. We would like to learn more about the United Nations and some of its specialized agencies and how it works to directly impact our lives on the ground. Fourth, financial support and economic empowerment. Special attention should be given to programs designed to strengthen women's economic independence, including entrepreneurship training and access to sustainable financial resources. Economic empowerment is key to enabling women to play a more active role in improving social conditions. And fifth, collaboration and cooperation between various organizations that work with young women in the region and also with local communities. It's important that organizations that are working with us as young women to collaborate and design their programs to be complementary to one another and not reinvent the wheel. It's equally important that the programs address the real needs of the local communities. We as young women, we have great potential. However, to fully realize this potential and create real change, we need education and innovative methods. The education we receive doesn't impact our lives, but also the lives of those around us, ultimately benefiting our wider community. We are eager to learn, support one another, and to share our experiences with our sisters across the geographical boundaries.
Thank you so much, Mona John, for standing in for Manija and illustrating the flexibility and innovation needed to do these trainings. And also, I think her feedback is really important in that it shows how we carefully test the curriculum. with our local contexts in order to refine and make sure that we are responding to needs on the ground. So thank you for that. And the next question is actually also for you. So if you need to take a drink of water, so we're going back to you. So Women's Learning Partnership and Women Living Under Muslim Laws are collaborating on supporting youth-led gender equality movements that are demanding accountability, democracy, and a just future in some of the most repressive societies like Afghanistan and Iran. Can you elaborate on the goals of this innovative approach to movement support and the recent pilot transnational transformative leadership training? So good question coming off of what Manny just said.
Yes, exactly. I feel that Manager John was just able to sort of set the scene on basically what the training was and what it did. So yes, with regards to, as I mentioned, one of the most important strengths of transnational feminist solidarity, particularly the one that Willem has been involved in, is to bring women together. So in fact, the leadership, the Feminist Leadership Institute of Willem dates back to the 1990s, in the sense that it looked like a sort of residency type of training where women activists, particularly from across the region, would come together. They would get together into one location, and then they would sort of facilitate the exchange of knowledge and experiences, and then really learn how can they empower themselves, as well as movement building and support, and being connected to sort of the international global human rights documents and sort of entities, because we would have, you know, special rapporteurs of the UN present at these trainings and so on and so forth. We really thought this in terms of keeping some of that initiative in terms of movement building support, as well as building solidarity, while at the same time recognizing, okay, what does our context need at the moment? So we wanted to center gender equality and justice in all the major political transportation. So really applying an intersectional feminist lens to this, because we know constitutions need to be rewritten. We do know that revolutions happen. We do know that governments get toppled very quickly. And unfortunately, many like to talk about gender equality and women's rights during these transformations, but we do know that many of these talkings about it are not sincere, right? So it's really about the moment of really highlighting the significance of these political and social moments for those underground, to be able to say, not only are you not alone, but also take advantage of any and all opportunities that you see, and be prepared to take advantage, even though it might seem like it's gonna, you know, it's not gonna be in the short term, right? Like in Afghanistan, unfortunately, we do know major transformations are not gonna happen in the short term. We also know the same thing with Iran, but nonetheless, we do know they are about to happen. You know, they will happen. So, so being prepared. Of course, the other objective was creating the space for exchange of knowledge and experience, especially among young, aspiring leaders, particularly women. And I think both Bahar Jan as well as Manij's remarks really highlighted why the youth-centered perspective is so important right now, because after all, they are the future of our context, while at the same time, they are at the forefront, and they just have so much more at stake with regards to being prepared to really fight for this, this particular change. Then the question really became of why did we decide to focus on Iran and Afghanistan at this particular moment? I mean, there's a number of different reasons. Obviously, I won't be able to list all of them, but just to highlight that both of these countries are witnessing very much extensive forms of gender apartheid, not just recently, but historically. They have remained resilient. Both countries benefit from having a strong sort of feminist mobilization and women's rights movement. Both of them have been connected as well, not only geographically with regards to, you know, travels and settling in each other's countries, while at the same time they share the language. So those were the moments, and of course the campaign for gender apartheid that has been launched to really systematically bring them together. So this is where the Iran and Afghanistan connection became sort of a priority for us, while recognizing that we need to extend it to many others. The other thing that was also an important objective was maybe the youth that were the aspiring leaders that we're speaking about, maybe they're not so aware of the rich history that it took to really build the transnational feminist solidarity. They weren't around 40 years ago when Willem was discussing many of these. They weren't around 25 years ago when Women's Learning Partnership was being created. So I think looking back to the future, drawing from history while looking towards the future with lessons from local, regional, and global context, and as well as what we meant by transformative leadership. We really discussed among ourselves, among the trainers, as well as drawing from many resources that we had, of what do we mean by leadership. Leadership is very broadly defined, and we just defined it as making a positive change for your own lives as well as your community. But we also made sure that it was applied in the sense that all of our participants were expected to do a project, to launch something, which I think the examples that you see from Manisha were really helpful. So some of the after the training, we actually did sort of evaluations and of which topics. So we met over 6 sessions. Each session lasted from 2.5 to 3 hours. And we covered a total of 10 topics. When we did the evaluations, over 90%, 91% of all of the participants found every single topic extremely beneficial and helpful. However, what really stood out for us was the topic of what is feminism and the long struggle for gender equality was one of the most highly ranked topics. And what's interesting is that as we were doing this training, this is also the one that, I don't want to use the word pushback, but it was one where many of our participants, regardless of whether they were joining us from Iran or Afghanistan, they definitely wanted to learn what is the true definition of feminism. And there was a lot of sort of discussions about, well, feminism is a Western construct, or it doesn't apply to us, or it's too radical, or it's anti-man. So it was really interesting to be able to have these discussions, to be able to say, well, what does academia talk about it? What does it mean for the other practitioners that have come before you? The second one was history of transnational women's rights movements regionally and globally, including the role of the UN. That was also one that was the second ranked highest topic that was of interest to the participants. And then who is the leader, transformative leadership and coalition building. So I think when we asked them for these rankings, and as well as you heard briefly from sort of Manisha's remarks, it was so important to not only bring some of this knowledge while also engage in what we call sort of co-creation in terms of learning what they also need, as well as us ourselves recognizing what is needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monajan. And of course, we are very proud to share our Persian language curriculum with you, Persian Dari language curriculum with you, and the experiences from our partner organizations, and also the importance of co-creating together some curriculum that really responds to the needs of these young movements. As Bahar mentioned, the importance of psychosocial support, and some of Manisha, and we're going to hear from Sahar shortly as well.
I just want to quickly add that all of this took a village where we had multiple participants, and we had very close collaborations with Zara Yaftali's organization, with Women's Learning Partnership, with many others, Alternative Links, and many others. So I think recognizing that to launch such a thing, and of course we're very thankful to many sort of entities that were supportive of us, right? Like Channel Foundation and many other organizations, that we do need to see such work sort of continue on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm going to go back to Bahar. Baharjan, as we've been discussing, transnational civic space and support from diaspora activists have been shown to enable women's voices to be heard despite domestic constraints. Can you give us some examples and elaborate on the potential challenges? How can transnational coalitions, including diaspora communities, support and learn from these brave movement leaders? And I want to emphasize learn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. I think during the Women Life Freedom movement, I'm talking as an Iranian, the Iranian diaspora really came together. And I think it was for the first time that I really saw our diaspora mobilize, unlike any time before. And I think it was mostly because they saw the leaders inside the country and the protests inside the country leading so powerfully, and they didn't have an option not to support them and not to amplify their voices. I remember the first few weeks of the protests, the only slogan people were saying was amplify our voices. And that was like the main slogan during the first few weeks. And the diaspora really took the task to amplify it. And I think two really good examples of how successful it was when Iranian women's rights activists inside the country called for Iran to be removed from the Commission on the Status of Women, and that call came from inside the country. The letters came from inside the country, but it was the diaspora who actually amplified their voices and was able to make it happen, and also the fact-finding mission. And we have been, the civil societies, Iranian civil society has always been calling for UN to establish different mechanisms to investigate Iran. But it was during the Women Life Freedom movement that we actually were able to do it, because the civil society started working together and the diaspora started amplifying the call for a UN mechanism. And we were able to push for it and establish it. So I think it's really important for the diaspora to recognize that they have a privilege. They have freedoms that they can use to amplify the voices inside the country. And it's really also important for us to not want to lead from the outside, but to amplify and to be able to listen to the demands from inside the country, because it's very different socially. Like if you're looking at the Iranians outside and Iran, outside of Iran and inside Iran, it's a very different population, and the demands are different. And what Iranians want from the outside might be different from what Iranians want from the inside. So it's really important for us to listen to the people inside the country and sort of act as their arm from the outside. When it comes to solidarity, I think that's something that our region is unfortunately not really good at doing and building solidarity. Our causes are very much hyper-focused on ourselves. But recently with the gender apartheid campaign, we have seen how powerful it has become for Afghan women and Iranian women to work together, because they are sharing basically the same cause on very different levels. But the end goal and the suffering is basically the same. And it has become really powerful to be able to see how these women are able to take such a term such as gender apartheid that has been around for a while, but not really common and not really used and not recognized by a lot of different governments and leaders. And they have been able to make it a more popular and more common term and apply it to their countries within the last year. And we are seeing a lot of countries now recognizing gender apartheid as a term to exist and recognizing it in Afghanistan and Iran. And we're like slowly getting closer to hopefully codifying it under international law. But before codifying, people need to recognize what it is, to understand what it is, and that's what Iranians and Afghan women inside the country are showing every single day, what it means to live under gender apartheid. And it has, and I think it wouldn't be as powerful if the two women from two different countries were working separately on this issue. Then now they're working together, because they're able to show what it means to have gender apartheid on different levels. In Iran, you are seeing it on a very different scale than that you are seeing it in Afghanistan, and it's also a learning opportunity for basically to show the world that if we don't act quickly, where Iran could also lead, and where Afghanistan could also lead. But yeah, so the gender apartheid campaign was also a call from women inside both of those countries. So all of these campaigns that you are seeing, it's very much a campaigns that are coming from inside the countries, but they're being amplified by the diaspora. And I think that's very powerful, and it shows how much power the diaspora has.
Sorry, unmute myself. Thank you so much for that. I think it's, as you say, very important, and the core of this project is to connect civil society in the diaspora and inside countries, but also to do it in a way that's supporting the goal of the movements inside the countries rather than allowing other agendas to get mixed in. Unfortunately, feminist movements have a history of their agendas getting co-opted by other agendas. So we are definitely very aware of that, and that's why we want to do this project. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to go back to Zara Jan and ask you a quick question. Okay, so most recently, you have been providing online education and training as well as mental health support for women and girls in Afghanistan. Can you tell us about your own background and what brings you to this work and what your hopes are for its impact?
Thank you, Laila Jan. Regarding the online digital schools and mental health session that you are providing for girls inside of Afghanistan, the idea came from where, as myself, I was a student during the first rule of Taliban in 1996 until 2001 when Taliban were in Afghanistan. On that time, I was a student, and I, I was the witness how it is difficult to be banned from school for teenager girls. And when Taliban came back to power in 2021, I felt that the new generation, the teenager girls that are now they are in school and they cannot go to the school, they deprived from the right to education because of the Taliban ban and also the Taliban edict restriction on the girls' education in Afghanistan. So then I thought that it is the time to do something for those young students that right now they cannot go to the school. And also, as I was familiar with the trauma that the ban could have on you. So this is why that I tried a lot to find the opportunity to establish some online digital schools for girls from grade 7 to grade 12. And inside of this, I'm trying a lot to expand this initiative, this kind of initiative in Afghanistan to have more girls as a beneficiary and also as a participants for this program. And inside of this, as it was clear for me, and during the different research that we have done regarding the impact of Taliban edicts on women in Afghanistan, one of the main findings from this research was the psychosocial and also mental difficulties and problems that this ban can impact on women and girls in Afghanistan. So this is why we thought that it's important to have some kind of psychosocial treatment and mental health treatment for those girls that they are facing with some kind of severe trauma because of the ban on school. Right now, it is good that we have a number of the teenager girls that they are a student of our online education school, online digital schools. And inside of this, I am trying a lot to find the opportunity of a scholarship and fellowship as well for those young generation that they are in Afghanistan, those that they were very intelligent, they were very capable, but unfortunately, because of the current situation, because of the ban on access to education for women and girls in Afghanistan, they cannot continue their education. I am becoming very worried and become very sad when I'm seeing some of very young and talented women that they were a student of different university in Afghanistan. They had the first position in their classes and their universities, and they had lots of dreams. They had dreams to become a doctor, engineer, diplomat, journalist, lawyer, but right now there is nothing for them. There isn't any hope for them inside of Afghanistan. So this is why that I'm trying a lot to find the opportunity of a scholarship and fellowship as well. The scholarship and fellowship can be in the online approach, and also we can provide and the facilities of this scholarship and fellowship in person, for example, in some region countries and also even in some European and Eastern countries as well. So this was the main reason that I thought to be an education activist and also to provide the opportunity of learning in this critical and dark time for women and girls that who are inside of Afghanistan and who are facing with lots of problems and difficulties. Unfortunately, there isn't any hope, any bright future for them. But inside of this, I'm sure that this situation will be finished a day, and we will come to celebrate some bright some bright days in Afghanistan. I hope to one day be a witness of coming justice and freedom in Afghanistan, and all of the women and girls in Afghanistan, they live in their country in an environment of with freedom, justice, and to have access to all of their basic rights without any discrimination, without any restriction.
Thank you so much, Arajan. All very important points. We're running out of time, but I want to make sure that we have time for question and answer since we're getting several questions. But I don't want to miss Sahar. So I'm going to ask you, Sahar, our other young Afghan student, can you please share a bit about your key takeaways from the transformative leadership training, specifically to apply what you learned to improve your situation and that of your community? Please also add any suggestions you have for our transnational feminist network to better support the next generation of leaders and movement builders in Afghanistan.
Greeting to everyone. Greeting to everyone here, and especially the leaders of today and tomorrow who have taken a step toward a world free from gender discrimination, filled with peace and justice. I'm honored to be part of this powerful conversation. My name is Sahar Niksad, an Afghan girl living in the beautiful city of Kabul, yet a girl who has been denied the right to education simply because of gender discrimination in Afghanistan. Despite these challenges, I have sought alternative opportunities through online platforms, and one of the most impactful experiences I have had was participating in the transformative leadership training, or we can say TFL, with WLUML. This training was not only enlightening but also deeply inspiring, as it led me to found the Alpha Seekers Network, a platform dedicated searching for and providing free online educational opportunities for me and my peers. Lessons and transformation from the trainings. Through this informative and practical training, I was introduced to fundamental concepts that I had never formally studied due to the restrictions on women's education. It was my first time deeply exploring the roots of gender discrimination, the principles of gender equality, feminist thought and action, leadership skills, and women's empowerment. Beyond the theoretical aspects, this training provides a space for meaningful action and collaboration. One of the most impactful aspects of the training was the opportunity to connect with courageous women activists from Iran and Afghanistan, which significantly expanded my network and strengthened my sense of solidarity. This training was not just about learning, it was about taking real action through completing a project. Alongside three incredible girls, I conducted research on the effects of artificial intelligence on gender discrimination, which further deepens my understanding of the modern challenges women face, while introducing me to one of my areas of interest, women in science and technology. Given my interest to conduct my research project in English, our instructors also connected us with other young students in other parts of the world to further facilitate cross-border exchange and collaboration and online learning. We had the opportunity to connect with a student in Denmark and WLUML intern as we talked about our project on gender apartheid and discrimination and AI. Founding Alpha Seekers Network, and inspired by the discussion and research within training, I decided to establish Alpha Seekers Network, a platform that enables Afghan people, especially women, to seek a knowledge beyond political or gender-related issues, exploring fields like medicine, business, law, and computer science. In our first one-month research cycle, 32 Afghan girls participated, proving that even in the face of oppression, education is still within our reach. One profound realization emerged from this experience. Even if the doors of formal education are closed, our dreams and determination can still make us the leaders of tomorrow with just a pen and a notebook. Key takeaways from the transformative leadership training. One of them is the power of women's solidarity. By gathering together in this space, I truly realized how powerful we are when we uplift and support one another. The leadership trainings aimed at young, aspiring women leaders who are facing backlash was not just about individual growth, it was about building a moment. I realized the importance of receiving inspiration from past struggles for gender equality, not just in my own context, but also beyond. I also recognize the power of remaining resilient in the face of systematic discrimination and empowering women to demand for the change collectively. Creating spaces to raise our voice. In a country, in Afghanistan, where Afghan girls are silenced and their voices are haram, this training gave us the platform to speak, to be heard, and to share our ideas without fear. We were no longer just observers. We were active participants in shaping our own future, our bright and shining future. The greatest impact of this training was that it motivated me to take initiative. And instead of waiting for opportunities, I decided to create them, not only for myself, but also for dozens of other Afghan girls. And about my suggestions to the TELF and all the participants in here in this conversation and all the audience, my suggestion is to expand programs like these to raise awareness and empower women. Based on the projects and research we conducted, both this program and within the Alpha Seekers Network, particularly our study on the impact of gender discrimination on artificial intelligence, I strongly recommend developing educational programs that introduce women to new technologies and teach them how to use these tools effectively. This will not only enhance women's presence in the technology industry, but also empower them to take leadership roles in shaping the future of technology. Furthermore, as the founder of Apothecars, I invite all the powerful women and allies here to join us in the strengthening our initiative. You can support us in two key areas: online classes and research workshops or training. Your participation, whether through teaching, research collaboration, or resource sharing, will help us take meaningful steps towards supporting Afghan women, not just about Afghan women, about all the women around the world in their pursuit of knowledge and growth. Additionally, my vision for this organization is not confined to one country. I aspire to expand this network beyond borders, bringing together allies from different countries to join this movement. This may seem like a small step, but it has the potential to ignite a transformating change. My vision extends beyond one country. I aspire to connect with allies worldwide, transforming this initiative into a global movement for change. This may be a small step, but it carries the power to rewrite the future. For the last sentence, I want to say to all the participants and powerful women who are here, even in the darkest times, knowledge is the light that leads us forward. When denied an education, we create our own classroom. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your eloquent reflection, Sahajan, and to you and Manije for, we're very thankful to you for your feedback and all the learnings you share with us to make our collective work more impactful. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to go to the Q&A. We have several questions here. Some are asking about how folks can stay in touch. I know that we are going to share some information with you at the end of this session and also in a follow-up email. There's also been a request for a curriculum on leadership, which we will also be sharing, our staff will be sharing. If there's anyone on the panel who has other, we'll get together and create a collective email, but if there's any other other things that you want to share with our audience right now, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to go to some questions. Okay. So the first question is, how would you describe the role of foreign support in shaping contemporary women's movements in Iran and Afghanistan? This is from Razia. Foreign support. I guess, I don't know, Mona, do you want to take that on?
Sure, I can address, and then I would
Okay.
request Zahra-Jan to also be so yes, I mean by foreign support, I mean so basically we as a transnational feminist solidarity network, when I say we, I mean both women living under Muslim laws as well as Women's Learning Partnership, we do see the value of supporting one another, learning from one another, and sort of, you know, empowering one another, right? Including ourselves. And one thing that was really important also for us as trainers who were involved in the training was so all of us, you know, here I am based in the United States. All of us get our news, you know, we're trying to stay on top of the news of the region and so on and so forth. So things can get pretty dark pretty quickly. So one thing that really helped for us is to have that personal connection and to be with the participants and to really try to understand, you know, what's really going on there. And that personal connection on itself, you know, or just to, as Leila-Jan said, just to create a space where we can all come together, even if it's a virtual space, that in itself was quite powerful. So so I think this is what we mean when we're talking about sort of connecting those inside a country with those in the diaspora to create this transnational linkages. Obviously, feminism has a long history of sort of supporting one another and being and knowing how to do this. And I think that's why when you have autonomous feminist entities be at the forefront of shaping you know, the curriculum for these, or to really recognize what's needed on the ground, drawing from, you know, as I said, decades of doing this work, that would be really helpful and beneficial. And so feminist funders are very well positioned to be able to support this, as I said, like, you know, autonomous feminist entities and organizations. I don't know if Zahra-Jan wants to add anything else.
Or Bahar. Oh, Zahra-Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Leila-Jan. There was some problem in your voice. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, it's it was about how do they, what was the question? I'm like, about foreign influence on feminist movement.
How would you describe the role of foreign support in shaping contemporary women's movements in Iran and Afghanistan?
Yeah, thank you so much. From my perspective, the foreign support or the international community supports right now, it is very important because right now, all of us, when we are doing our advocacy, it will be not have any effect if we don't have the support of international community with us. To be honest, this is the international community that they are going to take decisions regarding the codifying of gender apartheid, regarding the implementing of program about the gender inequality in the different countries, or gender discrimination, systematic discrimination, which is implementing in different countries against women, especially in Afghanistan and Iran. So it's very important that we have the support of international community. And for this, it is very necessary that we share the evidence, fact-based evidence with the international community, especially those that they are in a position to take decision about, for example, about the codifying of gender apartheid, about the support of initiative of women in the different countries, especially Iran and Afghanistan, and also about their support to feminist movement in the different countries. So this is why that there need to share evidence fact with them, to share the reality of the ground with them, and also to have their attention about the importance of this problems in the different countries, and definitely on that time they can take some decision. And instead of this, it is very important to have the international community as well for providing support for women initiatives in both countries, for codifying of gender apartheid as a crime against humanity in Afghanistan and Iran, and
inside of this to have their support and providing the tables, the platforms for women that they are in Afghanistan and Iran to raise their voice and also to talk about their rights. From my perspective, women in Iran and Afghanistan, they have their voice, but they need platform. They need a platform to raise their voice and also to share the reality of the ground with policymakers and also international community. And I'm going to end with one sentence. I'm very inspired with the talking points of Sahar Jan and also Manija Jan. She couldn't present by herself, but it was good that Muna Jan could present her talking points. I'm very inspired with both of them. And this is some kind of positive motivation for us as well, that we are going to continue to our fight, to our efforts and struggles, and then there is a new generation that they are in front of this situation, and they want to fight for their rights. They want to raise awareness about their situation and also about their hopes and also what is their demand from the international community. So it was very important for me, and I became very inspired and happy to hear from Sahar Jan and Manu Jan.
Thank you so much, Sarajan. I actually have another question I'm going to go to Bahar with, but if you want to answer this one as well, you can in the other one. But there's a question from Anonymous. What is the strategy we can take to counter political groups that hijack the efforts of women movements and create oppressive regimes? Since that has been happening in the Iranian diaspora, I wanted you to chime in. You mentioned it. Yeah.
That's a difficult question to answer. But I guess I always talk about how these political groups lack young people and women, and I think that's the reason they hijack a lot of our movements. So I think pushing for more youth and for more women to be politically active is very important to also push back against those political groups that always come and hijack the movements. But I think it's inevitable. It happens everywhere, not just for Iran and Afghanistan or any other country. Political groups always have their own agenda. But that's why it's so important to support the civil societies and women's groups now more than ever, as we are seeing a lot of women's rights women's rights being restricted around the world, not just in Iran or Afghanistan, but we're seeing it's a global trend right now. So that's why it's so important to support women's groups and civil society more than ever right now, so that they're able to shape the narrative the way that it's supposed to be, and they're able to work and do the work that they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you so much. There's another question about whether we incorporate mental health wellness, and yes, that's definitely in the plans, and I think Zahrajan already referred to that. And there's another question from Chibogu. How are young people in both Iran and Afghanistan identifying with the concept of feminism? And do you think that there's still a concept that some young people are quote, uncomfortable to identify with, even when they generally agree with the principles? You touched on this, Mona John, so I'm going to have you delve a little deeper in it. So.
Yes, definitely. I mean, what's really, really interesting is that with our session that we devoted on feminism, I mean, basically it was just, what is feminism? Like, let's just talk about it. Let's, and so we discussed the various waves of it, and also discuss, how evolving feminism has been as sort of a practice, as a thought. And so that in itself, just the fact that feminism is not one thing and it can look different, and that it's not a Western construct, and if you're pursuing gender equality, if you're pursuing equal access to opportunities and rights and liberties, then that by itself is sort of feminism. That was perhaps one of the most enriching and interesting sort of interactions that we had, because many did come to the session with the thought that feminism is not necessarily for us, or that we don't need it. Or, for instance, I remember one of the remarks from one of our attendees in Afghanistan was, why do I need feminism if I can't even talk to my neighbor about it, right? And my neighbor is a woman having 5 children, and and so it was sort of making it not only concrete in their minds of, feminism was what you understand it to be and what you can utilize in order to address your own needs and your own demands, but also recognizing the rich history behind it. And so, yes, there's definitely a lot of sort of negative connotations associated with feminism. And I think that's one of the accomplishments of trainings, or actually creating a space to be able to talk about these, that let's discuss it. Let's discuss what do we agree with? What do we disagree with? What have our male elites told us about these concepts, right? And what are sort of the key sort of advocates of women's rights throughout history, right? Going back to the 1800s, going back, from our own context, what have they thought of us, taught us about it, and so on and so forth. So yes, I think when we saw the evaluations, we were really surprised to see feminism be perhaps one of the most useful one, because as I said, it was perhaps the most heated one that we had.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always very interesting. There are many very nice outreaches on how folks in the audience can join our team, and if there's any opportunities for professionals to join our team, and there are, and we will be in touch. So thank you for those messages. We'll be in touch, and we look forward to remaining in touch with you all. There is an interesting question from Hafsa. This is going to be our last question, unfortunately. What do you recommend for building cross-border coalitions and transnational activism in regard to the current political climate here in the US, also across the world, and its impact on academic, social freedoms, and security? So this is interesting because, we're doing our pilot program, but more and more we're seeing that these issues are universal, and there's a lot of learning to be done from each other, which is how our organizations are actually set up to, focus on global South partnerships and exchanging ideas and creating the solidarity needed to really achieve social change and social justice, which is, as a cliche probably, but it is a marathon, and we need to stay really persistent and reimagine, these relationships. But I don't know if any of our panelists want to add to that.
I'll just quickly say a couple of words, and then I'm sure my co-panelists will also like to chime in. I think that's a great question, dear Hafsa, in terms of that there is a need for that cross-border solidarity and coalition building. And as Manija Jan mentioned in her remarks, right at the beginning of our sessions, the government of Syria fell, and we were really anxious about it. So seeing that HDS is coming to power, and seeing those sort of dynamics, while at the same time hearing the same promises that we've always heard. So it was such an organic, natural thing for us in our group, for women of Afghanistan and Iran, to think like, okay, time is right for us to write an open letter. And as we did this, it got a lot of sort of feedback and reactions. And then obviously, within just the next month is where the U.S., President Trump came in office, and then we saw sort of extensive reversals happening as well, even more than what we had imagined. And so, in fact, our conversations have continued on in the sense that, so what can those in the global South, those in Muslim context, those in Iran and Afghanistan, could they have lessons for women in U.S.? And that's exactly one of those conversations that we're having right now, that in fact, we are from contexts that have unfortunately experience with theocracies, with authoritarian regimes, and women have always remained resilient. In fact, maybe women from the global South are actually better positioned to give guidance that we can learn from and to really express their solidarity. So actually, that's one of the things that we're talking about in our group, in the sense of, let's have a letter of solidarity from women of Afghanistan and Iran and even Syria, to women of the US, to be able to say, this will not remain like this, remain resilient, and really concretely build this sort of collaborations and solidarity and lifting each other.
Thank you, Manajan. And you and I always say that this cross-border coalition is definitely two-directional. We are learning from each other. We are getting we're getting so many amazing questions, and it makes me very sad we have a few minutes left to not be able to answer them, but I would like to suggest that we continue the Q&A session in our follow-up emails, and I'm going to save all these questions, and thank you to all for sending in your excellent questions. But in closing, I want to give a big thank you to our panelists for the inspiring discussion, and to say that we look forward to working with you all and our growing coalition from our audience today to cultivate alliances of young feminist change makers working to bring about meaningful transformations for gender equality in Afghanistan, Iran, and beyond. As you may know, Iranians and Afghans are celebrating Nowruz on March 20th, which is in a couple days. It's a spring equinox celebration marking the start of a new year. Nowruz literally means a new day in Persian and Dari. And I hope this Nowruz and the ones that follow will bring a new day of light and hope for the women of Afghanistan and Iran and their sisters around the world. Thank you again for joining us, and happy spring to all. Nowruzatan Piruz.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Leila John, for moderating and for everything, for keeping time.
Wonderful to be with you. I wish we could extend it, but we will do so offline with our audience.
Yes. And thank you so much to Sahar and Manija John. Manija, I did see her try to join multiple times. We are in touch. She is apologizing for being unable to join, but she's grateful that her remarks were nonetheless shared. And Sahar John, thank you so much for also you joining us. I know it's late in the evening in Afghanistan at the moment.
Thank you for standing in. Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.